Hi everyone. Um, I wanted to go through my Factorio build. This is my second playthrough of the game, and I thought I made it quite interesting, and I just wanted to share it. This video is mainly out of interest. And I think what I'm gonna do is gonna do a walkthrough of the different parts of the entire factory, and then for each section, what sort of design challenges or what kind of improvements I see myself making. So, for those who aren't aware, the goal of this game is that you start off on a planet. I think my original ship is still here, so I can show that. So, you basically crash land on a ship such as this one, and you're basically tasked with building another ship for you to escape the planet. So, I've really completed the game. Oh, I can't really show my radars. Let me see. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go drive there and then show you guys the rocket ship. So as I was saying, the goal of the game is to launch yourself out of space, and that requires a lot of resources. So the whole process basically is getting the resources, creating the parts needed to build the rocket ship, and then eventually blasting off to space. So yeah, this is the spaceship that was launched. Okay, yeah, yeah, and so this is the basic idea. So how do we get there? So I'm gonna zoom out and let's take a look at the start. So in the start, it's actually quite simple. There are different resources that you can get, like coal, you can get iron, and then you can get copper, and then through smelting. So something like this. This is like a furnace array. What happens is we put in coal and iron, and we get out steel plates. Then I transport these steel plates into my main factory. So this is the first factory that I built, which was basically just meant to store all the parts that are needed for the rest of the factory. So this is a basic concept. For example, the steel plates go in here, it mixes, and then the copper plates go into here, and it mixes into these factories, and these factories will put them back out, and we'll make the green chips. Then I'll send the green chips throughout the rest of the factory, where I'll use it in the different parts, so on. And then it will make more things, and those smaller, those things will make more things. And there are a lot of different ingredients, as you can see. Like there's cogs, there are belts, there are tunnels. And I think if you noticed, at the start it was very basic, very fundamental things to the factory. And as we go along my shop, as I call it, you get more and more advanced resources. Yeah. So you can't actually win the game by building this. I think this one was more for like a scaling. So what I mean by that is I wanted to walk someplace, gather all the resources needed, then I can move on to some of the other factories which I can build even faster. So this factory over here is sort of I know it's nighttime, so it's a bit dark, but this is sort of the factory that I use to beat the game. And what I mean by that is that it houses the research facility. So this is what you call your laboratories, and then with your laboratories you can do research. Again, research. Each consumes one of those science packs, and then with the research you can, for example, research this rocket silo, and then from there, win the game. Yeah. So how do I do this? So each of these science packs, they are made out of other things, other components. So just for example, the red science pack is built out of copper plates, cogs. I'm just realizing this seems wrong. I'm not sure if the steel plates should be here, but yeah, yeah. So those are the red, and then the greens will be made out of, for example, the belts and yeah, the belts and the inserters. So then, as we look at the rest of the base, we got advanced circuits to make the blue signs. Then we've got rails. We got the modules, production modules, electric furnace, and then some of the motor parts for drones, advanced chips, and then what's it called? Low density something. Low density structure, making the yellow signs. So this basically is this factory. I call it my main factory, and this is the factory that mainly was used to beat the game. So up here is another factory, which is I call my robo factory, and the point of this factory is to create drones. So drones are basically little bots that stay in your inventory. So I can give a quick rundown. Yeah, I can show that. So just for example, as you can see here in my logistics section, don't have any solar panels, accumulators, or substations. So if I go back to my shop, which is once again the first factory that I built, you notice that all of the parts that I need to build, well, to like basically develop a new factory or like design a factory is on the shop. So if I walk there, you'll notice that my drones will immediately take out the items that I built from the shop and deposit it into my inventory. So here's a quick showdown. So as you can see, the logistic drones will come out of the ports. They'll take up the solar panels and then promptly deliver it to me. So just like by standing here, all of it, yeah, as you can see, the solar panels are deposited in, and the accumulators are in. Yeah. So I think I mainly built this factory so that I can if I ever needed to increase the number of drones or number of my inventory, or needed to improve a factory or build it very fast, then this is the right place to do it. And it's quite interesting how many or how large this factory needed to be in order to just get just a couple of drones. Yeah. So then the last factory which I wanted to show is my space factory. So I showed that just now, where all of these were leading up to the spaceship launch. And so this one is also very similar, where it's mainly just delivering the items required and processing the items required to get to space. So that would have involved, for example, some of the advanced chips, some of these green chips, blue chips, so on. I think I've somehow run out of oil, and my plastic production is run out. So okay, anyway, so there's more to it than just this. So I'm thinking just how to explain it. Okay, so let me just maybe give you a brief timeline. So first of all, you would start nearby the base. Your first initial crash landing site will have all the necessary components like your copper, your stone, your coal, and your iron is all here. But as you will notice, that iron will eventually run out, your copper eventually run out. So it's also kind of important to like branch out and also improve your skill. So just for example, the size of this field isn't too big, and it can only fit an X number of miners onto it. So one of the first big ideas of scaling up to get more factories, more things produced, is to make like a outpost. So this is, for example, one of my big iron outposts. Again, you can see the number of miners that are available, and each of these miners will feed into another one of these arrays. And you notice that I've got like some upgraded steel furnaces that take coal and then also smelt into steel plates. So the difference is that whereas in the first build, the iron ore and the steel plates are directly go into the factory, the difference is that in this outpost, it actually goes into a train. So you might have noticed already some of the train lines running around the factory. The idea behind this is that if you want to get some items traveling across the map, this is probably the fastest and best way to do it. So as you can see, the iron and this is steel. It gets loaded into a train, and then the train will have its own path that I've set out and I guess programmed. And then yeah, here it comes actually. So this is a train that will load in the ingredients. So you can see it's filling in, and then once the items are full, the train will move off. So so each one of these bases has like a sort of like a train routine, which I have also included in the game. So just for example, taking the example of this steel train, first stop, it waits for a full cargo inventory, then after that it put it into the shop, then takes a refuel. So each train will need to be refueled as well. So that's a part of like the logistics challenge. Then it will go back to the mining base, deposit it at main, go back to the mining base, deposit it at a space shop. So this train does like its own routine. And yeah, I believe I've got, let's see, 3, 6, 3, 6, so 12 trains actually. Yeah, sorry, it says up here, 12 trains and 47 stations for each of the trains to go to. Okay, so there's some my miners. And then there's another station here for copper. I think this one's slightly bigger than my iron, but it sort of does enough work for the entire factory. Also in the build, there's a stone miners. We don't need, the demand for stone isn't as high, so it's not as important to have so many. And there's another coal mine here, which has its and once again, all of these have its own little train sections that load the items into the train, and then the train rotates around. So here's for example, the stone one. Obviously this one was full, so no need to stop there and load anything. Right, so that's basically the high level. Oh yeah, I've almost forgot. I think towards the north of my bases, we also have a bit of solar panels. So you can see here the solar panel farm that I have, and usually when you start the game, you do use steam power. So you can see the remains of my steam power part here. So it's taking the water from the plant, taking coal and heating the coal up to make steam, and then the steam would use to power the steam powered machines. Same line of thinking here. And so basically these two arrays would have powered my entire factory. But I've since moved down to solar panels, which I think is more environmentally friendly. So this particular map, if you're more familiar with Factorio, it doesn't actually have any, so to speak, like aliens. So in the normal version of the game, it is a hostile map. So you will see that aliens will come and attack your factory. And the reason why is because your factory actually does produce pollution, and pollution makes these aliens get very angry, and it also causes them to get stronger over time. So another part of this game would have been to create and generate some of these like defensive tools, so like guns or turrets or that sort of thing. But since there's no real reason to worry about pollution in this particular map, there's also no particular reason to use solar panels, but I thought just might as well just put it in. I think they're a cool concept. Yeah. So up here in the north of my factory, I've got two components. So these are my crude oil, basically my liquid processing plants. And so how this works is that a pump jack will take out the crude oil, put it into some barrels, and then from here there's like an oil refinery that processes the oil into petroleum, and then the petroleum is pumped into, once again, train carts that will come into the station, get filled with petroleum, and then take the petroleum to wherever it needs. So just for example, how convenient. I guess this one is full. So it went straight off. Yeah, that one looks full to me. The one above here is slightly more complicated, as you can probably tell. So not only does it have another iron steel array here with another train, it also has another oil factory. So the point of this side is actually kind of different, and it's a bit more complicated. So it inputs the crude oil and water, and outputs 3 different liquids. So hard oil, light oil, and the petroleum that I was showing earlier. So the petroleum actually gets siphoned to these storage pumps, and that basically doesn't really. Yeah, this is once again used in the factories. But the cool part here is that we also use the light oil, which is used to create rocket fuel, which is a very, very important part of the end game. And these rocket fuels also power all my trains. So this, for example, is a refueling stop. So this particular train, it will go around each of the different refueling stations, and then we'll refuel any of the trains for them to pick up later. Rocket fuel, of course, has the highest fuel efficiency. So I don't think it's efficiency, but rather has the highest train speed. So if you let my factory running, assuming no problems, this is probably the fastest method of getting your trains around. The other one is like the lubricants. So these are probably the most important liquid out of all of them. And basically what this does is that it helps out with some of the drone parts or like the automation parts. Yeah, so I've got one tank here after it's being processed by the heavy oil. Okay, yeah, so that's pretty much the high overview of my factory. I think you might have also noticed some of the green oil patches, green patches here. This is actually uranium ore, which is another part of the game that I didn't really investigate. And basically what uranium ore does is that it allows you to create nuclear reactors, which are also another form of energy. And I believe as well, deep down into the military tech, there is uranium ammo, which does a lot more damage to biters. The aliens that reside in the planet. But once again, there's no reason for me to have researched the black science or like the military science. So yeah, so I don't really have any of that to show. Okay. So now maybe I'm gonna talk a bit about the design choices that I've gone through this game. So I already noted that I've got a big shop, and I think it's probably the most important design choice that I made. And basically, once again, if I wanted to build a factory very fast, I would just come here, the drones deposit all the necessary equipment, and then I just go out and build it, and that takes no time at all. So I've got something, so as opposed to like crafting it in your inventory, waiting for that to craft, you get your whole entire factory just to do that for you. I'm kind of curious why. I see. Interesting. Is my sulfur out? No, sulfur seems to be good. I guess this is just blocked. Oh, it's not. Interesting. Probably a bug here. Interesting. Yeah. So this is another part of this video that I wanted to go through is some of the inefficiencies that my factory has, and I think there's still a lot of problems. Definitely not a perfect factory. And sometimes you kind of, half of the game is just going around trying to fix the factory. There are a lot of things that come about. So let's talk about my big factory, which is the science one. So part of this game is something called the main bus, and what the main bus is basically so how do I explain? So some of the parts of the factory. So let's say towards the end, let's say some of these chips are kind of advanced and require more than one part. So the idea is like, how do I get as much material into these sections as possible? And the way you do that is to ensure that the throughput of the items going into that particular section is as high as possible. So the way I do that is that I create something called a main bus, and the main bus hosts all the main ingredients that each section of the factory will use. So the main ones obviously being, for example, the iron plates, the copper plates, the green chips, steel plates, plastic bars, advanced chips a bit later on, sulfur. These are engine parts, and then stone, and lastly stone bricks, and these are stone bricks. And basically I would siphon all of these different parts. I mean, transfer as many as possible at a given time. So for example, some of these heavier materials like the copper and the iron take 4 lanes, and then siphon as fast and as many as possible at this single time. I haven't actually done the math on how many are actually sitting in here right now, but I'm assuming it's probably over 1,000 plus per. Yeah, it seems like a lot. Yeah, it's already 5k in one of some of these boxes. So yeah, you can tell it's very well stocked. Yeah. So this is when the game gets a bit more towards engineering than it is any other thing. So when we start to look at the inefficiencies, right? So for example, this particular belt carries 30 items, and for example, this machine will consume just about. Let me just double check this number. So 0.5. So roughly 0.4 copper plates per second. And so basically there's always a ratio that is necessary. So if you look at the 30 items, like how many of these factories can you have consuming 0.4 copper a second, and is that just enough to have enough copper on the feeding into these factories? And if you get it balanced wrong, which I often do, you start to see some bottlenecks appear where the some of the factories on the upper side of the factory, like the more important ones, I can see the green chips, aren't producing fast enough to distribute to the rest of the factory. So I think this is a really good example, for example, where there's not enough green chips supplying into the advanced circuits, so that there's not enough advanced circuits supplying to the rest of the factory, so being consumed by, for example, the modules, the blue signs, and some of the advanced circuits as well, the blue chips. And I think in a different build, I would probably have to relook at how many factories I can probably put on a single lane, or even consider their different design changes, so that I think the problem with this part of the factory was that there's just too many factories producing copper wires, and so really realistically, if you look at the right side of the factory, on the right pane where it says assembling machine on the right, it says how many products are finished. But as you can see here, there's like 40,000 products finished here, and whereas here is only 100 finished. So you can tell that that's very unevenly balanced, and some of these factories are producing a lot more than the rest. And similarly, here you can see here that this particular factory has produced 22,000 green chips, but towards the end it's only 14,000 green chips. So it's just not too bad as bad as this case here. So like one of the idea I would have done in the future maybe was to put the green chips being flanked by some of these copper wires, so the copper wires are fed immediately to the green chips, or reducing the number of copper wires, or rebalancing the factory. So this kind of design element is across all of the different factories here. Another part of the system that I'm not very happy with is sort of the train line. So as you can see, these guys are moved, but as you can see, some trains, they run out of fuel. I think this one I might need to think about where this train is moving, and for how long, as this one seems to have run out of fuel. So sometimes the trains bottleneck each other; they wait on each other. It stops particular trains from moving away from being refueled, or just for example, I used to have a train station here, and what would happen is that the petroleum would come in first, which would block the lubricant train, and the lubricant train will stop here, which would then in turn block the iron, the copper, the sulfur. So eventually I moved on to having a different that's why there's no oil there. I don't even have a train coming here. So eventually I moved on to having another separate line for the petroleum train to park here. That's just another example. So like part of it is also kind of planning very far in advance. What do you want for each factory? What other trains are doing, and how do you ensure that the trains don't really interrupt each other? So just another example here is some of the junctions that I have been working with. So if I take out, I wonder if I can see it. Yeah, so this is some complex mechanic, so I won't really go into much detail, but basically, as you can see here, there are different colored parts of the track, and what this means is that once a train is in that particular part of the track, it cannot enter it. So part of designing some of these intersections is to ensure what kind of combination, or what can intersection look like, so that the trains can move as fast as possible through them. So let's say we've got one train coming through here, another train, do they collide, will they not? So that's also the very complex part of the game, which I haven't really thought through. Like, how do I ensure that the trains move as fast as possible? You can see here that this train will stop, and then, but it technically didn't need to have stopped, because this particular train went through the purple line, which has nothing to do with the yellow line. So, but this train still stopped. So that meant that this train, or it could have been another train down the line. So just example, if you look through at this part of the track where it's just pure straight lines, you can see that these trains will be separated up to here. So anything on this particular line won't. So the trains, some trains will probably wait here before and wait for this train to move, the forward train to leave the section before it moves forward. Can I even show that? No, I don't. I don't have a train with me. So, I sometimes you will notice that the train will sometimes wait in the middle, even though it could be moving. It could still be moving up the track, and I'm not too sure how to fix that as well. And I think the main takeaway, the third main takeaway from my build here is probably this part of the factory, which is the liquid processing. And the reason for this is because that each of these, maybe I can, if I quit out here and put one of these oil refineries down, I can show the part. So as you can see here, the products of the oil processor. So what will happen is it takes 50 water, 100 crude oil, and produces the following ingredients. So the main problem is that these ingredients are not balanced. So you always get less heavy oil, a little bit of light oil, and a lot of petroleum gas. And I guess the idea is that how do we do it in a way so that all the liquids are being used at this exact ratio, so that I never have a balance, have too much petroleum or too much or too little heavy oil. So basically, it does not. Part of the challenge is that you need to have all three products to be emptied before it will take another round of the ingredients. Similarly for here as well. So this coal liquefaction, for example, takes in certain ingredients and then has a different output. And so having to balance it is very important. So what would happen towards some of the mid-game portions of my playthrough was that I would have too much yellow oil, so light oil, and too little heavy oil, and the result was that there's not enough lubricant, and because there's not enough lubricant, some of my factories didn't work at all. So you can see here some of the trains are being blocked by this train who ran out of fuel. So what I did later on was to pump in all the light oil, which I wasn't using at all, to make solid fuel, and some of the solid fuel would contribute to the rocket fuel here. So, yeah. And I think this was more or less enough to have balanced off. So it created enough demand for the light oil, combined with the heavy oil and the petroleum, that my liquids were more or less balanced. Yeah, so I think that I'm probably gonna, keeping in mind that this was probably my first big attempt in making something very at this scale. So it's like enormous amount of factories. You know, having the first time playing around with the main buses. I think what I might do in my next playthrough is try and improve on some of these like design challenges, ensure that the ratios are correct, ensure that the trains are programmed correctly, perhaps even playing around with some of these intersections, so that they're a lot more efficient. And then lastly, improve on some of this liquid processing. And then also perhaps play and investigate what the biters are like at a scale this size, because as you can imagine, the pollution of this factory is humongous, and I probably would have a big issues trying to fight off the biters, especially if I don't have, especially there's a balance between like proactive and reactive and so forth, so on and so forth. But anyway, I think that's gonna be just about it for this video. Just wanted to jot down some of my thoughts about my factory and some of my goals for the future. Yeah, so thanks for watching, I guess.